I wanted to be a lawyer. I've always liked the idea of defending people who needed help. I've always been passionate about advocacy. My interests kind of lean more toward like healthcare and wanting to do research and things like that. Then I took chemistry in college and was like, psych, like this is not for me. And then that's when I stumbled upon public health. It was a way for me to kind of merge all of those things. I'm in charge of managing thousands of volunteers that come through our doors. Last year, we had almost 10,000 volunteers that came through. We are the smallest department in this organization, so it's me and two other folks that work with me. Our goal is to make sure that folks have a memorable experience when they come into the organization and that they understand what we do, what we stand for, and their role in that, and the impact that they're having on the greater community. I semi recently moved back in with my mom. So I would say, like, outside of work, a lot of my role is as a daughter. Definitely a leader. And I would say that goes both on the job and outside of the job. I think in my friend groups, people tend to lean on me, which is scary a lot of the times, especially when you don't always feel like you have it together. Working at an organization that didn't stop has been, I think for me, a blessing. We were not impacted financially by anything, so it wasn't one of those things where I had to worry about my job. Like, I knew my job was secure, so that made it a lot easier to focus on, okay, what can we do to serve our clients? Many of my coworkers weren't seeing their parents for a long time, so there was a lot of leaning into one another, supporting one another, and our organization made sure that they supported us as well. Learning about Black people being more affected by COVID-19 than any other population in the US was extremely disheartening to me. And it wasn't something that I was really talking about here because I think we were just so focused on making sure that the clients were okay. That was bothering me as a Black woman in this organization. When everything went down in June, that's when being a Black person that was an essential worker just was a lot. Being Black in America has always been a lot. And I don't think that we as Black folk always recognize that we might be carrying these internal things, just navigating through daily life, having to code switch and do these different things. But I think also in the time of a pandemic and still having to show up for other people, that was hard for me. Because there were days where I was getting up and I was like, I love what I do, and I love our mission, and I love the fact that we're serving the most vulnerable people in our community. But I'm a Black woman at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, in the middle of the day. And I feel I should be doing something that's geared towards my community. There were parts of me that, again, wanted to be out there protesting. I wanted to be on the parkway with folks going to the art museum. But then I also knew that there were certain protocols in place as essential workers. And so needing to keep myself safe so that I can keep the others that I work with safe. And again, like that juxtaposition of being essential in my career, but also like, that's just my career. This is my life, regardless of my career. And there was just like this constant battle of, do I do what's right for the job? Or do I do what's right for me? And up until that point, the two seemed to be the same. But I think once I started to see all this racial divide, they started a little bit to separate. And that was hard for me to kind of process. Leadership reached out to me and we had like very open and honest discussion. And it was a very emotional time of them wanting to know how was I feeling. And then opening it up to other Black people in the organization, like, How are you all doing? We formed a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, which I was asked to lead, I guess you can say. So that's been a learning experience as well, being able to share with my mainly white coworkers about my experiences, but also about their experiences and their role in this and allyship. 2020's been a lot. It's just been a lot to deal with. I know a lot of people are saying they can't wait until 2020 is over and all that stuff, but I think that really this is just like a shift in history. I don't think it's just going to be over on December 31st just because the date changed. I think we're living through a moment, both with the pandemic, with the racial and social unrest. All of this has to do with the shift in American history. And I can't say if it's like a shift forward or backward or up or down. Like, I don't know. I think we keep looking for these milestones, but I don't think that's realistic. I think a lot of it has to do with us as people. Collective change is what I believe in, and I think that's what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter movement. People coming together from all different sectors, all different walks of life to take a stand. And so I think that the more we're able to talk about race and to talk about these different issues, we'll start to see changes. I don't think it's going to change just because the year changed. It's coming from individuals. I think in some ways, talk of the vaccine and these other things makes people feel uneasy, especially Black people. And when we talk about, unfortunately, the United States history with Black people in the medical field. And so there's a lot of just distrust. And that personally, I'm not going to run to a line to get a vaccine. I think I'll get it eventually, but I'm not going to be one of the first people to get it. When you open social media or you turn on the TV and you see like another Black person has been killed or murdered or whatever, had a negative encounter with a white person, those things take a toll on you. And then when you hear and you see comments under these things, and you're like, wow, like there's a lot of racism that's still very pervasive. And it's not just, I shouldn't just say racism, but that's the one that most closely aligns with me. There are other things as well against the LGBT community and other things, and women's rights. Like, there's so many things. But I think the one that most closely aligns with how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis is being a Black woman. And so sometimes there's a feeling of hopelessness. Like, what is this even? Like, what are we living in? Is it worth being here? My parents immigrated from Jamaica while my mother was pregnant with me after they lost everything in a hurricane. And the whole idea of coming to America was to build a better life. And I know, like, right now, especially my mother regrets coming here. And that's like a really sad state to be in after all these years, after 30 something years. Feels a sense of regret. Because this is not the life she wanted to live. She didn't want to live somewhere where she'd have to worry about her son or her grandson's life just because of the color of their skin and the threat that poses to some folks. It's like a dull pain that's always there that you've just learned to deal with, that you've just accepted as part of your life. It's not as simple as finding a vaccine. There is no vaccine for racism. There's a lot that folks just didn't know was happening to Black people in America. There's a lot that Black people didn't know was happening to Black people in America. And so just this relearning or just learning and awareness and discovery of others, other cultures, other lifestyles is something that I hope to see. I think that we have to hold each other accountable, which is another thing that I've learned this year is accountability. Accountability to make sure that I'm wearing a mask and that those around me are wearing a mask and being safe. Accountability to make sure that if I'm witnessing or experiencing something that is racist, that I can use my voice to be able to call that out in a way that's going to incite change and not necessarily violence or something else. Accountability to the people that I love and making sure that I'm giving them my time and not just the end pieces of myself, but giving myself to them fully. And then accountability to myself to make sure that I'm giving myself the space to process everything that's happening, the space to say no, the space to love myself and to share that love with other folks. I think the main thing is for anyone who has the opportunity to either read these stories or hear my story, it's just understanding that, being Black in America, is heavy. And creating spaces for Black people to be able to share that heaviness is important, I think, to creating a better society, period. And I'm grateful that I have that here, but I understand that it's not like that for everyone. I understand that everyone doesn't feel safe sharing. And so by having projects like the one you all are putting out, it's important to get those stories in front of different types of people, not just Black people, not just white people, just everyone, young, old. I think the more we're able to share, the more understanding we can be towards one another. I think that would be a better path for us moving forward. And I think that there's so many memes going around where people are like, your Black coworkers are tired. And yes, we are tired. We're tired in so many ways, physically, emotionally, mentally, because we've been dealing with this for over 400 years and it just keeps popping up in different forms. So I think that it's not asking for anyone to give us sympathy or anything like that, but just taking the time to understand and being open to hearing what we have to say is important. So thank you.